So I'm Carrie Farquhar. I'm faculty member here at University of Washington, co-director of the Kenya Research and Training Center, and also many Fogarty training programs. And I want to thank everyone who's joining us for this very special Kenya Research and Training Center session. We're coming together to remember our dear colleague, Kawango Agot, celebrate her life and her work. And she is really, without question, one of the most talented, dedicated, transformative researchers I've known, someone I've really admired and looked up to for years. I realized we started the IRTP program at the same time in 1999, and I've always looked up to her enormously for the great work she's done. So it's an honor for me to start by sharing a very brief summary of how Kawango came to the University of Washington, and then I'll pass it on to my colleagues who've worked closely with her. And these include Nellie Mugo, Kenneth Ngure, Grace John Stewart, Pam Kohler, and Elizabeth Bukusi. If there's time at the end, we would welcome other contributions. If you'd like to say something, please go ahead and send me, or actually send Adrian or Tanya a chat, and then we can ensure that you're able to speak. You can also put comments directly into the chat for all to see if you'd like to do that as well. But just briefly, Kawango came to the University of Washington in 1996 as a Fulbright Fellow. She came to work towards a PhD in medical geography. Prior to that, she had completed her Bachelor of Education at the University of Nairobi, also in geography, and a Master of Philosophy in medical geography at Moi University. After arriving at the University of Washington, she decided to also work towards a master's in public health in epidemiology, and she was going to do that simultaneously with her PhD. She wanted to return to Kenya to do field research for her MPH and her PhD, and at that time, she wanted to study how HIV-1 seroprevalence rates were between male members in circumcising and non-circumcising churches in Western Kenya. It was really quite I think, a visionary on her part. She was offered a scholar position with the International AIDS Research Training Program in 1999, and she had that for 2 years till 2001 and completed her graduate studies. She earned the PhD in medical geography, and her PhD dissertation, many of you might remember, was Widow Inheritance and HIV/AIDS Interventions in Sub-Saharan Africa. Contrasting conceptualizations of risk and spaces of vulnerability. And her MPH thesis in epidemiology was the prevalence of HIV-1 in rural Kenya, association with male circumcision. When she returned to Kenya, she continued with the male circumcision and joined the University of Nairobi, University of Manitoba, randomized clinical trial, male circumcision, that really changed the face of the HIV epidemic and prevention for HIV as well. So I'm just going to briefly mention her mentors, who included Noel Weiss, Professor Ndenya Chola, Joan Christ, Jonathan Mayer, and now she has so many wonderful colleagues whom we'll hear from now. She did return to Kenya, and really that was just the beginning for the tremendous impact that Kawango has had on HIV in Sub-Saharan Africa. So now let me pass to you, Nellie, if you're able to pick up from there and share some of your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Carrie. Okay, I can actually put on video if you can see me. So good morning and good evening, everybody. I met Kawango actually during my MPH in Seattle, and she had joined the MPH program then, and she has left a real mark in our lives. I think Carrie really got it right when she talked about Kawango being dedicated and transformational. She was a friend, a colleague, and such a passionate woman in everything that she did. And I believe that the light that she's shown will keep shining. And just as I start, I made a couple of slides to share with you. I don't know if they're showing up. Can
Yeah,
you
do
see
you
them?
want to put them in presenter mode? There we go. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they look good.
And,
Thanks, Nell.
and it's interesting to me that just that week, when Kawango passed, we were preparing for the Matrix meeting in Nairobi, and she was a member of the committee that reviewed products to move from preclinical to advancement in the program. And I know I had talked to Ngure, and we had anticipated talking to her some more for guidance, on all the things that she'd been through in growing impact. So that never happened. It's a reminder that we should talk to people when we think about it. I just presented this morning, and I presented this slide on Kawango. We know that she was a founder member of Impact. And Kawango said, Carrie, you said she had impact. She had impact everywhere. She was such a strong community person. When you talk to her, Kawango, she talked about community. And I think that informed even the subject of her earlier work on widows and widows' inheritance, and directing the work that she did to the community that she lived in. She was also very passionate about young women. And I think we all remember Kawango with her smile. That was forever. I was looking at her Facebook page. And when I saw this, I just smiled because it was Kawango. She was never a fence sitter. She said as it was. And there's this debate in Kenya about lowering the age of consent for sex from 18 to 16. And she said only a bee should think that this is normal, honestly. And, it was in parliament. And I just looked at it and I said, she's right. But most of us are not able to say it. But Kawango did, and she put it on her Facebook page. So this is who she really was. She was also very passionate about young girls, and she had this Naiji, which was the Nyanza Initiative for Girls' Education Empowerment. And she really felt strongly that no girl should have to drop out of school because of pregnancy without having a chance of going back. And she didn't just say it, she went ahead and did something about it. And she started this program for young women. And I think several of us have had opportunities to meet her girls. She also held several sexual gender violence training programs through Naiji. And I've met her girls, and they're really empowered. She didn't just take girls to school, she also empowered them. So I'm gonna jump here and just show this. So the REACH study is a trial that Ngure was a PI on, which was comparing, and maybe he'll talk about that, the contrast, the pivoting ring and oral prep, and to see how well girls would use it. And we had this consultative meeting in Nyanza, and she brought all her girls with her. You can see them there. And many of these girls really found their voices and confidence, and they talked about her being in IG had taught them that they were worthy and somebody. And several of them actually attended meetings, regional meetings, and you could only just admire them for the things that Kawango got them to be, just from her drive. She, Carrie talked about her work in circumcision. Some of the earliest oral prep work was FEM prep, which was oral prep evaluation amongst young women. And this was some of the earliest studies, and she was a PI for that study. Those were followed by these trio and quattro studies that looked at why young women were not adhering to PrEP products. And if you look up these studies, you'll find her name as an investigator across them. She didn't just do the research on circumcision, she also led a lot of the implementation in Nyanza and Turkana. And she was a member of the African Academy of Scientists. So this is, I was just amazed. I was talking to Dr. Juno Doyo about this. And just going through the community initiatives that Kawango started. So she had her research program, which was IDO. Then she had this Naiji for young women. Then she started a secondary school, which was the Kawango Academy. And more recently, she had this thing called Kisihomi, which I think Josephine is more, and Elizabeth Bukusi are better versed to talk about. but it's a community initiative to get communities to find solutions. And then she also had the Ray Youth HIV prevention initiatives. And I remember our colleague Irungu was Elizabeth Irungu, worked on that and mentored some of the young women and asked, and it just asked young women, like, what are the priorities of research and what should we do? So more recently, I just learned from Juno Doyle, who was also my classmate, that there's a group that set itself up after we lost Kawango to make sure that they foster their network and partnerships with the common bond of being her friends and mentees, and to make sure that her work and legacy is carried forward. And I was like, there are people who truly have legacy, but her drive and passion was so large. So that's her as we remember her at an IAS conference. I got these photos from Yvette. Yvette is an AVAC fellow and community advocate. And she said she sat with Kawango. This is the Zambia meeting that Kawango attended before we lost her at the airport. And she said Kawango was a little bit more quiet than usual, but you can't tell from the smile. But, she attended all the sessions, and I thought we'd appreciate just to see her in that last minute. I asked Kerry, you all know Professor James Kerry, he's at the WHO now. We were all together at our MPH in Seattle, and I know they stayed in the same estate with Kawango. And he just talked of really appreciating how she transitioned from geography and then moved to MPH and then really grabbed that field. Her unique perspective, skills, and expertise have made a significant impact for Kenya and the world. There are very few of us can comfortably move from our comfort zones into new fields and become such leaders with such impact. She also mentored AVAC fellows, and I had a long conversation with June, who said she was such a dear friend, and that we must, he said there was intention to start the work that she'd started. And she worked so hard. She really did the work of more than 10 people. And you can tell from all the initiatives and the programs that she led. I just, I asked for this from, sorry, I got this photo, I didn't even have it before this, from the REACH meeting when we were in Nyanza. And I think we were talking about how do we get communities to respond to their own problems, to be the initiators who find solutions to their problems. So I think Kawango truly inspired us. She set standards. She walked her talk. She was always ready to share. And she reminded us that research was about people and communities. So I can just say, Kawango, may your soul rest in eternal peace and your work live beyond your physical earthly presence. And thank you really for organizing this to bring us together and remember Kawango in wonderful ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Nellie. Thank you. Those pictures are lovely and really capture her smile and her spirit, as you said. I think next, Kenneth Ngure, did you want to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Kari. Thank you, everyone. I'm happy to share a few words. I don't have an elaborate PowerPoint, but I'll just say a few words. And first of all, I'll start by thanking KRTC for this initiative. I think bringing us together to appreciate our departed colleague, I think it's a worthy thing, and all of us have stepped out from our engagements to ensure that we participate in this worthy event. And just to say that this morning, I would also want to thank Professor Nere Mogo. She gave an excellent plenary at Al4P. And at the start of her plenary, she showed the PowerPoint of Professor Kawango, and I could see the audience really appreciated because she's well known. She is a global scientist. I can tell you many people in this conference that we are attending here in Peru know her. So seeing her photo there and at the beginning of a morning plenary was actually an excellent idea. So just to tell you, even as we are doing this as KRTC, that even the Global Forum of Scientists is also celebrating her life. Then I also want to say that for me, when I think about Professor Kawango, the thing that comes to my mind is a mentor. She has mentored dozens of scientists, and they are always doing different things in the field. Whenever I would see a phone call from her, or I would meet her at one of the airports or at a conference, after the president race, she would be talking about her mentees. She was a passionate mentor. And I remember even at Croy, I came to my phone and found several missed calls. And just to call her, she was calling because one of her mentees had an issue with the registration in a conference and something. And she wanted me to help. And so for her, it was not about the science, it was also about the person, which many mentors sometimes are also not able to bridge the gap between the science and the person. So she also respected her mentees as people. She wanted all the best for them. She wanted their welfare. She thought about them, and she spoke very highly. And if there are any mentees here, they would also acknowledge that, and that she was an excellent mentor. Another thing I want to say is that she was also an excellent colleague. For many of us who are in Kenya, we have reached out to Professor Kawango and we needed any support, whether you need a vote because you are vying for a certain scientific position, or you want to join an Academy of Sciences where she was in African Academy of Sciences, or such things. You knew that you could always count on her. She will deliver on time. She will just ask you, when is the deadline? And she will work with her team to ensure that you are well supported. And if you faced any any personal challenge, you would count on Professor Kawango, whether it needed you to write an article in the newspaper in your support, or whatever else you needed. We have really lost somebody who was not only a friend, but who celebrated all of us. So with the other thing, and Professor Mugo has mentioned about it, was about how we as Kenyan scientists admired Professor Kawango. The way she started her impact organization, how well it's doing, we all looked up to her. And, and she made it look so easy. Many people, when they're doing so well, would, get an air or show you like it's rocket science. But whenever you met, she would talk about it like it's, one of those things that everyone can do, but we know it couldn't. And we had planned earlier this year, we had discussed with Professor Mugo that we should go and visit her in Kisumu, just to get a few more tips on how she has been able to run her organization so well, and has a big impact within the Western. So in the interest of time, as I come to an end, I just want to say that we as Kenyan scientists, though we've lost Professor Kawango, we are consoled that as she exits the stage, that her work will continue because of all the mentees she has worked with and all the systems that she has set. And we will definitely always continue remembering her, and we'll definitely miss her as one of our colleagues. And we'll, even in this kind of conferences, when you don't see her a smile, you don't see somebody walking very well dressed. For those who remember, she'd wear a very well African outfit, smiling, giving you a warm hug. We'll definitely miss that, and we may her soul rest in eternal peace. And once again, thank you, Kari and KRTC team, for this idea.
Yeah, thank you, Kenneth. I think you really captured her with those last few comments too, about the smile, the warm hug, the beautiful African dress as well. So thank you, Nellie. Thank you, Kenneth. Grace, I think you were going to say a few words, and I don't know if you have slides you wanted to share or just words.
I just have words, and thank
Excellent.
you.
Words are great.
Yeah, thank you so much for the this opportunity and this time that KRTC is holding, and thank you so much, Nellie and Kenneth, for those great insights on Kawango. And I think all of us, it has been shocking to know that she's no longer here, and she's been somebody I know that has been a hero of mine for many years, since the 2000s, as we've heard. All her work has just been so impressive. And I think when I think back about Kawango, I knew her first reputationally. I actually knew her first by looking at her papers and hearing about her exploits, doing her MPH and PhD in geography, which was really, I didn't really know anybody else doing that. And the types of studies she was doing were just so brilliant and very creative and one of a kind, thinking of circumcision, economic incentives, looking at widow inheritance. She was always doing things that were unusual and not what anybody else really focused on. And I think all of that just led me to know her as somebody who just had great ideas and was extremely visionary. And as we've touched upon, the other piece of that was that she was also just so collaborative. She worked with so many different types of scientists and colleagues, urologists, trialists, economists, social scientists, and she had such an active and big mind. She could just think about things across many dimensions. And in that way, I think ended up making unusually important contributions. For her, I mean, it's no surprise that the organization that she made has impact in the first name, the Impact Research Development Organization. And I think, you know, I started hearing a lot more about her programmatic leadership in the 2000s after PEPFAR. And, you know, at the time of PEPFAR, most people were focused, you know, importantly on providing HIV care and clinical programs. But Kawango, again, took a very unusual, preventive, holistic approach. She was just concerned about youth in addition to the treatment programs. And she really wanted to have drop-in programs, try and think about the youth, help them stay out of trouble, help them succeed. This is before anybody was really doing any meaningful work in youth and adolescence. She was the pioneer in that. And all the work that you've heard about, the programmatic work that Nellie outlined with so many different NGOs, she had this kind of parallel programmatic work that went in parallel with her research, which was a ton of work. It could be 5 people's work or mission, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that she kept her eye on the ultimate goal of having impact. And so it didn't really matter about a paper or a program, really what was going to have the biggest impact in the community, what was going to make the difference. And I think that was something that really she kept consistent with and tirelessly did so much in this work. As part of that, she was just this big advocate. And I saw on one of the web memorials, someone quoted the verse, "I have fought the good fight, I've finished the race, I've kept the faith." And I thought that really did embody the way that she fought as an advocate for the communities that she cared about. And she fought to have the community voice be a prominent part of how research, how programs were run. I think, you know, she fought for the adolescent voice so that she would make sure they were front and center in terms of the Ray conference. She wanted youth actually designing the programs, youth learning how to do research, youth being on the boards, getting them to conferences we've just heard about. Again, well ahead of anybody I knew in terms of doing that work. So we were really fortunate that Kawango agreed to work with us on a study of adolescence this last couple of years. So I got to work with her a little bit more closely. And it was such an honor just to work with Kawango. She's just somebody that's a lot of fun to work with. And had this way of leading and engaging the community, leading the team. And on the calls, she always had that trademark humor and wisdom, kept us, you know, focused and kept things going. And it was just really an amazing experience. And I think part of that is just that, you know, you hear that expression, of course, we're all unique, but Kawango was just who she was. She was just very authentic. And she brought that authenticity and that passion and that excellence together. And I think it just made a very special combination that inspired us and inspired everybody she's around. And yeah, I just really miss hearing her voice on those calls every week. She always had so many different ideas and just it's somebody that it's sometimes hard to believe that she's not here. And I think that impact, her voice, her vision is something I want to make sure that we and I can carry in some way into the work. So I think these last 20 years, she's been such a hero and a role model for me. And I know that's true of many of us. She's one of those larger than life people that, you know, has been such an honor to know. And I think because her impact was way above and beyond her research, her life was particularly inspiring. She was so generous. She's always doing things. Instead of just talking about things, she was just doing things. If there was a need for the youth or for these young women, okay, let's just start an NGO, let's just help them. She gave so much to people. She's unfailingly generous. And if she saw a need, she didn't really do much before she just would jump in and do something. And I think with that impact, I hope and I pray that we can continue and somehow carry on some of those examples and try and bring a bit of our that Kawango vision into what we do. Be bold and visionary, be compassionate, and be joyful, and reflect the legacy that she left us.
Great. Thank you, Grace. Yes, her generosity. I think that's something both you and Kenneth have talked about, both with mentors and and everything she does. It is really something we have to remember and celebrate and continue on the joyfulness of it. Pam, I think you were going to go next, Pam Kohler, and then we are going to have time for others to speak. We have a very large group on, so we'll have Pam speaking next, and then Josephine Adoyo. If Elizabeth, I think, can't make it, she mentioned you might be able to speak, so send me a chat if that will work. Great.
Yes,
Over
I
to you,
will.
Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning and good evening, everyone. I, like Grace, I think I knew of Kawango long before I actually met her and started collaborating with her. I started as a research coordinator with the Center for AIDS Research at the University of Washington back in 2006. And I remember just being so struck by Kawango's passion and vibrance, her energy, her laughter. And in the last 6 years, I've worked really closely with her and with Grace on the DIS study and really had the opportunity to get to know her and learn so much from her. Our study worked with the health system to improve adolescent HIV services in Kenya. And one thing that really stands out to me about Kawango is just how she was an absolute expert at community engagement and dissemination. At the start of our study, she led workshops with families, legal stakeholders, policymakers, teachers, health providers, anyone who had an interest, I think, in adolescent HIV care. And she was just able to generate such a remarkable level of buy-in for this study. And it was a study that was really implemented by the health system and not by study staff. And she somehow managed to really get people on board and engaged and participating throughout the entire study process. I had a few photos of her from one of our early workshops, and the hilarious thing is she's an absolute blur because she was so active and just really dynamic in the way that she led those sessions. And so they're not my best photos of her, and I didn't share them. But at the end of the study, I think the other remarkable thing is just the way that she led dissemination of study findings. And I think, in many of our studies, we do an active process where we go back to the community and the stakeholders and share our findings. And this was just the most intensive dissemination plan that I had ever seen in a study. And I think I even told her, I was like, Kawango, we can't afford this. This is too much. She said, no, Pam, we're going to do this. And it was just such a learning experience for me to see the richness of the feedback that we got from the various stakeholders and how they commented that, it was so rare for researchers to come back and share their findings and talk about the results. And so she really taught me an important lesson, I think, about dissemination of research in a really meaningful way. I think I'd also add that, like the others who've Nellie and Nguri and Grace have said, Kawango's real legacy is really her incredible dedication to improving the lives of young people, from her own children, the children in our community, children living with HIV in Kenya. She really has gone the extra mile and walked the walk to improve people's lives and keep that as the guiding light and beacon for her purpose. I think Ray, it was something that several people have talked about, that she really just, I think, pulled together from different bits and scraps and pieces of different studies, and just pulled off this amazing program that sought to actively involve young people in research. And she helped them conduct mini studies, helped them write abstracts, and they went and presented at conferences and really just generated meaningful involvement of young people in research. I think the last thing I'd like to mention is really just the mentorship that Kawango provided to the staff and the students and faculty at the University of Washington. She took a really strong role in teaching the next generation of UW scientists, helping them to conduct rigorous and meaningful research and analyses. There was I think she's on here, there's a PhD student on our team not too long ago that was doing her dissertation defense and didn't want to give us a Zoom link, and Kawango put her foot down and said, your Kenyan family needs to be there, and really just wanted to, really saw the team as a family and provided a lot of support and just guidance to all of us, and we're so grateful for her. So I think in closing, I just want to say I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have known Kawango. My heart's with her family, her daughter, the whole KRTC community, and everyone at IRDO. So thanks everyone for your time.
Thanks, Pam. And yeah, thank you, Sarah and others for putting comments in the chat too. We're going to hear from Josephine Odoyo, and then then I think this is a wonderful opportunity for others to speak up and share their memories. And she's left such a tremendous legacy. I think we could go on and on for days talking about all the incredible things that she's done and how much she's touched our lives. Josephine. Are you there, Josephine?
Thank you for the opportunity. Can I share? I have
Yes,
some slides to share.
Yeah, we'll just stop sharing our current one and you can share. We're not seeing your slides quite yet. We're just seeing a Zoom icon on your screen. There we go. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think a lot has been said about the work that she had done. And I'm here, I'm Josephine Odoyo. I work as a research nurse under Professor Elizabeth Kusi. And because she was not able to be here, standing in and presenting on her behalf. So I wanted to share some slides on the work of remembering Dr. Kawango Agot and the work that she did. Some of the great projects that the late Prof were involved in, as has already been said, were the Adolescent and Youth Ray. This was a movement which was established with an objective of advancing young people's innovative ideas on reducing the HIV burden among their peers in Eastern and Southern Africa through research, capacity building, enhanced networking, and continuous mentorship. Let me give you some background. So in 2014, in Cape Town, in one of the HIV R4P conferences, a young person captured concerns of her peers, and I quote, we attend these conferences and end up just talking to ourselves. We do not understand what is going on, even when they, that is the researchers, talk about us, that is the youth. And this actually bore what Ray was all about. It was an answer to an outcry of these young women. And it was hosted in Western Kenya in Kisumu County. It was a 4-day conference with a total of 375 attending in person and over 167 individuals participating virtually. Some of the outcome of this conference were over 29 oral presentations were made, 47 posters, 4 best practices, 10 keynote speeches, and informal sharing of personal experiences by young people. I want to share a bit of the milestones that were achieved. And as you have all correctly said about her community engagement, she believed in going to talk with all the stakeholders. And here is one of the governors in Kisumu and some of the local leadership there. I think there were several abstracts which were written. You people have already talked about that, and you can just see how many those were. There were over 27. There was one person who was able to write a manuscript and was published in PLOS. We also had quite a number of them having learned the knowledge and the skills to write grants. We had several people or individuals who won, they were awarded grants and they were able to implement such work. Such was the passion she had with the things that she set out to do. I think a lot has also been said about Niger, and just thought that I could give you a little more of this inspiring community-led change. It was established in 2011 with a mission to leverage community resources to equip girls with knowledge and skills for productive and fulfilled adult life. It targeted 10 to 24-year-old young girls and women. And this was to reduce some of the indicators that, like high teenage pregnancy, gender-based violence, female, and then a lot of early child marriages, looking at school dropouts, those who are having mental health and maternal deaths, among other things. So she really believed in girls' education as a strategy to improve those indicators that I've already mentioned. And the mission was to envision a society and a future of self-determining and self-reliant girls and women. I think the main mandate of this was to pilot and scale innovative interventions that give a second chance to girls who drop out of school, mainly due to teen pregnancies, as I've already said. And the opportunity was to help them to resume schooling and improve their chances of living a fulfilled adult life, which they did. And we can see that this she did using different approaches at different levels. So we had the girl herself, and they would provide them with life skills and education in girls forum and individual counseling, and link them to role models and provide basic survival kit for them. Girls in School, again, was providing education scholarship, and she was partnering with school administration and teachers, and just reviewing their performance with the teachers that were looking after them. Girl at Home was to provide small livelihood support to the mothers, conduct home visits, reinforcement of positive studying behavior at home, and then she would review performance with the parents. And she would go ahead, and another approach was Girl in the Community, providing vocational skills and linking them for employment or access to capital for business so that they could move their livelihood. And the community advocacy and outreaches were to influence social norms and that hindered girls' education. So she partnered with government, schools, and other non-governmental organizations to strengthen national policies. As I saw someone also saying that she worked very closely with DASCO in Kenya. So you can see girls really doing a lot here. This is the center where the Nige is stationed in Kisumu. And these are some of the activities that they are doing. But to sum it all, I think there were a lot of beneficiaries. There are a lot of beneficiaries in Kisumu, Siaya, Homa Bay, and Migori. Quite a number of girls completed their secondary schools. 53 girls dropped out of school, and 9 girls are completing their school in 2024. Since 2014 to date, 15 girls have transitioned to different universities across Kenya, with over 215 colleges and technical institutions. And I want to say that some of them are actually giving back to the community. And in the center that I've just shown you, we have like 3 girls who are employed. They've come back after their graduation to give back to the community because they benefited. And these are some of the many projects that supported work that she was doing, with over 19,584 beneficiaries benefiting from all the work. And with that, I want to say thank you so much for listening. I'll miss her because she was a true friend. May her soul rest in eternal peace. I'm honored to have known her. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josephine. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think you've just stressed that her impact is so far beyond research. I think many of us in academics focus a lot on research, and that was obviously an enormous part of what Kawango did, but she did so much more with her programs for the adolescents and the girls. So I'm so happy you were able to share those with us. We don't have any more scheduled speakers, but we definitely have time for people to say a few words. And I saw, Chiari, that you were on, James. Would you, if you're still on, would you be in a position to say something? Nellie was sharing some quotes from you.
Yeah, no, happy to say something. Yeah, and I think Kawango really is meant a lot in my life, and I really somebody I remember very fondly. I think for me, I remember Kawango as somebody who could really understood like people and loved the people, was able to interact with people from all stations of life. And I think it's no wonder that she has been very close to communities. And she was really a fun person to work with, to study with, and to be friends with. And really just condolences to Gift and the family. She really somebody will live for a long time in our hearts. But she added a lot of value in the public health space in Kenya. I think she came with really fresh ideas, and some of the people have already mentioned the way many of the things she started doing while still at the University of Washington studying really proved to be very insightful many years later. They were way ahead. Yeah, but she really, it's a gap that we'll all feel for a long time. Yeah, and thanks, Kari, for giving us the chance to have this time together.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, thank you for those words, and also for expressing condolences to Gift. You know, we all express our condolences, Gift. I didn't realize you were going to be able to make it, but I'm glad you're on and able to hear these wonderful memories and tributes, really, to your mother. To the
Maybe, Carrie, I could say something briefly.
please, yes, please do.
Yes, this is Fukundi.
Oh, thank you, Rich.
Yeah, I too had an opportunity to interact with Kawango. I think we go back to the roundabout meeting her at about the same time as Grace did. And just as Grace did, first of all, it was just her fame that, you know, we heard about her out studying out there in the geography department, and we in the School of Public Health on South Campus. But then we went on to interact in other places, particularly you remember the January collaborative meeting was always at a point where everybody met. I think for me, one of the things that really stood out for me about Kawango was her work around male circumcision. Before we, in the late 80s, Prof. Gacha and I had been part of a team that was doing, there used to be a book called The Status of Women and Children in Kenya. And at that point, we had reading the literature, reading whatever was being published. Already there were signals that male circumcision may be protective. And we included that in that report. And we were required to present it. Like, you know, most governments, departments here, you plan a meeting and then they postpone it. And we had already booked to travel to go to a conference. So our work was presented in our absence, where we raised the issues of male circumcision. And the whole report was thrown out. In fact, later NASCOP, repackaged it and presented it as a government document. But when we presented it to the forum, which was the Ministry of Planning at that time, it was thrown out. They couldn't understand how we could be talking about male circumcision as a preventive strategy for HIV. So when many years later, Kawango was a key implementing project coordinator for the circumcision studies and the scale up. It was phenomenal the way they did that. The buy-in, the very people who had not wanted to even think about it, that women can talk about male circumcision. She was able to do it as a leader in rolling out this really important preventive strategy in our nation, and to bring men on board on the question of HIV prevention. So I greatly admired her work in that way. We've also interacted in studies around adolescence, and we had some work we did, collaborating with Ann Kuth, Irene Inwani, myself, and I think James, the Kinuthia was also a member of that team, among others. And it was really looking at different strategies for piloting different strategies for prevention of HIV for adolescents, and particularly adolescent girls. And I must say, I admire her versatility in getting those studies off the ground, organizing interesting ways of recruiting participants, would have these road shows. So it would be a road show, entertain people, invite them to the point where we are doing the recruitment. The services will be organized in such a way that you are able to meet even all the ethical requirements. There were components of it where we were going into people's home and offering testing for teenage girls, involving their parents in the process, and was actually very the research work and was very successful. And I'm grateful to God that we published all the key work last year and this year, you know, and that work continues to inform the policies that Kenya that are being made here in Kenya around adolescents. All what you have said about her being a friendly person, able to work in interdisciplinary teams, cheerful spirit, complete optimism, and the ability to mobilize all of us to support her efforts, particularly the mentoring of the young people to be adolescents to do research, was just phenomenal. We're sorry to see her go. I think it will be difficult to fit into her shoes, but I'm also confident that she has done her succession planning. All those young people she has trained, motivated, the ones who are in science, the ones who are in the community. These are individuals who will carry forward that legacy of her work. And I'm glad that the world is better because she lived. And I'm happy that I got to know her, and I was one of the many acquaintances that she had in this world of HIV medicine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Ooh, that's a hard one to follow. I think you captured so many of the elements that are in my heart also about her. Does anyone else want to say a few words? If not, I think ending on what you had just said, Ruth, about her optimism, and then some of the comments in the chat, and you also echoed her kindness, her generosity, just her true good spirit. Layered on top of this just incredible, innovative kind of vision for things that many of us would never dream of doing, whether it's circumcision or the widow inheritance, or working, actually eliciting voices of the young people and engaging them in that way. So thank you all for joining. Really appreciate having this opportunity and being able to share it with you. I think she will definitely live on with all of us, and I think it's on our shoulders to carry on her mission.
Gift would like to, I think Gift raised her hand. Maybe
yes.
Gift would like to
Sorry,
say
please.
something.
Yes, Gift, you may have the last word. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't see myself. I think my phone is acting up. I don't know if you can see me. But I just wanted to just appreciate all of you for putting this celebration session for my mom. I really, really appreciate, and thank you for allowing it to be recorded. I just want to put together like a repository of just memories of my mom, so that my kids, as they grow up, they can see who my mom was just through your memories with her as well. So I really appreciate this. Really meant a lot to me. So thank you so much for putting this together. Take care, everyone.